Well, friends, if you like courtroom drama the way I like courtroom drama, then you know how an interrogation goes, right? What would we do without Perry Mason and Law and Order and The Good Fight? Because of them, we've got the lingo down, don't we? I mean, badgering the witness, exculpatory evidence. The witness is non-responsive. Hearsay. Can you tell I thought I wanted to be a lawyer at one time? It's miraculous how every case is wrapped up in an hour, and oh, we do love those stunning confessions from the witness stand. Ask any trial lawyer, real life court is rarely that exciting. It's far more boring and repetitive. Many of the arguments take place behind closed doors in the judge's chamber, away from the jury. That's where the deals are made, right? Compromise, a dirty word for some. Rarely we get to see the kind of a few good men Jack Nicholson outbursts. You can't handle the truth. In fact, when witnesses do appear in court, quite often they fail to answer an attorney's questions. Whether unable or unwilling, some people are awfully good at ducking questions, or just not showing up at all. One of the best ways to duck a question is to hem and haw, like a politician, right? Could you please repeat that question? Another is to answer the question with another question. The beloved Socratic method, That may work in the classroom, but it's not that good in a legal proceeding. Were you with the defendant the night in question? Where else would I be? How about not even answering the question? Did you lock the door that night? I normally do. That much needed follow-up. But did you actually lock your door that particular night? Whether intentional or unintentional, we humans do so like to look for loopholes when confronted with direct questions, which brings us to the story of Jesus and Peter, found here in the last chapter of the Gospel according to John. Jesus and his right-hand man, shall we call him Rocky, are taking a stroll along a familiar beach on a stretch by the Sea of Galilee, days after the resurrection. And I'm pretty sure Peter is still reeling from this whole crucifixion drama, followed by Jesus' appearance to them in the upper room, and now, third time's a charm, right? That's why Peter and a few of his disciples decided, resurrection notwithstanding, it's time to go fishing. Time to get back to our old lives, what we know, Though the disciples know a lot about fishing, their ability to catch any fish on that particular day is about as successful as their ability to hang around, please excuse the pun, when Jesus was being crucified. We remember what happened that night, don't we? Peter denies Jesus not once, but 3 times. Jesus predicted it. No wonder he's a bit stunned when the risen Lord shows up again on that beach. The sudden appearance must have shamed him greatly, hence his desire to quickly return to what he was familiar with. And watch what Jesus does here carefully. It's early morning. Our risen Christ is standing there on the shoreline, inviting the disciples to try a different fishing strategy. Now, didn't he just spend 3 years instructing them how to fish for people? Now he's giving them some very simple instructions, telling them how to fish for fish. At this moment, they don't really recognize him. Suddenly their nets are full, though. And aside here, my brother Jim, who's now retired, was a successful indoor organic tilapia farmer in East Texas for several years. His company's name was East Texas Tilapia. Pretty descriptive. But then after that, his little byline, Pisces 153. I love it. Pisces is the biblical Greek word for fish. And 153, where'd that come from? Well, that's the number of fish that they pulled in. It was a number that was, beyond their imagination. A lot of fish. And now they realize who's standing there on the shore with them. It's their master and friend, Jesus. Well, here we go. Seeing Jesus, Peter dives into the water and he swims about 100 yards or so to the shore while the others bring in the morning catch. Kind of reminds me of Mary to Lazarus' sister Martha. You guys finish up, I'm going to go be with the Lord. Anyway, they all arrive and Jesus proposes a prayer breakfast, okay? Fish and bread. And they sit down to eat together, and the disciples don't even care to ask, "Who are you?" after breakfast in a lawyerly manner. It's time for Jesus to take a deposition, don't you think? Jesus has 3 questions for the defendant. Peter, come walk with me. Be with me. Knowing Peter's guilt, maybe Peter will try to duck these questions. I don't know. Let's see. Simon, son of John, do you love me more than these? It's interesting that here Jesus uses Peter, original Aramaic name Simon, not the strong Greek name that he had given him, Cephas, Peter, but Simon. But we can just call him Rocky, right? It's almost as though Jesus is acting like a lawyer now here, guiding his witness to revisit, to focus on the things that happened from the beginning. Why don't we go over here and we're going to go over your story again, okay, Simon? Peter's answer is kind of non-responsive. You don't seem to want answers that are direct per se. Classic dodge, he thinks. So, we've seen people do this. Isn't it obvious, Jesus? You already know the answer. That's what Peter's thinking, I think. Do you love me more than the rest of these guys? Jesus asks. Yeah, sure I do. Yeah. That's what's expected, right? We can only imagine what Peter is thinking. You always expect more from me than these others. Am I supposed to do everything around here better than the rest? Oh, right. That's why you named me Rocky, I know. And come on, man. With these implied questions yet unspoken, Peter's answer remains kind of a non-answer. It's a sort of love that's expected among buddies, not the love that's necessarily offered sincerely. More about this later. Anyway, suffice it to say, now Peter's cautious. He knows his previous actions on the night that Jesus was taken away probably reveal the shallowness and the superficiality of his love for his friend Jesus. And so Jesus asked him a second time, Simon, son of John, do you love me? And this time Peter gives a definite, yes, Lord. But again, he tries to qualify it by putting the onus on his questioner. Hey, you know I love you, man. And if Jesus were a lawyer, we might almost hear him complain, objection, calls for speculation. Still, Jesus he's more subtle than that. Step back now. Do we see the dichotomy here? Peter and Jesus seem to be on totally different wavelengths. Peter makes an unsubstantiated assumption. What Jesus wants is more than words. You see, Jesus, he wants to see a real demonstration of love, not just words. So he nuances it and he says, tend my sheep. Well, that had implications, sheep and shepherds and all that. How about something tangible, Peter, something real? Show me just how much you love me by being a good shepherd. I want you to follow up on those bold promises from before. And this time, be willing to sacrifice yourself on my behalf or on the behalf of others. That real love my friend. You do remember what I said before when I was teaching y'all. No one has greater love than this, than to lay down their life for a friend. Let's take a step back from this intense story now, because I want to share with you something about the original language. One of the main reasons I went to seminary was I wanted to learn to read the Bible in Hebrew and biblical Greek. The New Testament is written in Koine Greek. Koine is not the high Greek of Aristotle and Plato and Socrates. No, it's the language of the marketplace. It's barbecue language, refrigerator beer language, Walmart language. How you doing? Great. You got any beer? Yeah, okay. The way we now talk to each other on the street. The New Testament only has 2 words. There are a number of words for love in Greek, but the 2 words for love that are used in the New Testament, I imagine you're familiar with them, at least the first one, agape. It's the kind of love that God has for us, the kind of love that Jesus has for us. And phileo, which is brotherly love, Philadelphia, that sort of thing. They're actually quite different in meaning. Of course, any lawyer would tell you that the meaning of the words is very important in a courtroom. And that's why everything that's said in the court is taken down word for word in a transcript. So let's parse these biblical Greek words today. And you're going to be surprised. When Jesus asked Peter, "Do you love me?" he uses the strongest Greek word for love, agape, God's love, divine love. And when Peter responds, guess what? He chooses the weaker word, phileo, brotherly love. Phileo is the kind of love that you have in a friendship, camaraderie. My pledge brother in college, military unit, that sort of thing. Language aside, here's what intrigues me about Peter versus Jesus' choice. Essentially, Jesus asked the same question 3 times in order to get a response from the witness. And those 3 times certainly do matter in the language. Numbers matter a lot to ancients. Peter denied Jesus 3 times in the courtyard, engaging in an act of cowardice and betrayal. And now Jesus is giving him 3 opportunities to be restored as a true disciple. Today, Peter will not only confess his love for Jesus again on that beach, but this time he's going to go out and live it. And it is this 3rd time when Jesus asked Peter, "Do you love me?" that it's truly amazing in the Greek. It's so counterintuitive. The first 2 times that Jesus asked Peter, "Do you love me?" he uses agape. But the 3rd time, Jesus switches to phileo. I've been preaching for a lot of years now, and if there is an underlying theme to my sermons, it would probably be this: God always meets us where we are and not where we ought to be. I learned that from pastor and mentor Cleve Wheelis years ago in my 30s. I was a young elder, and I would listen to him preach, and he talked about that all the time. That's what's going on here. Jesus is meeting Peter where he is. "Well, Simon, do you at least love me as a brother?" Then here's what I want you to do. Walk the walk. No, don't just talk the talk. Rocky, go out there and feed my sheep. I'm not going to be here much longer, so this time it's really up to you to demonstrate your love for me by caring for the ones that I care for, and I am depending on you. Friends in Christ, we are so like Peter in that we can't simply say yes to Jesus unless we're willing to live our lives, to live the way Jesus wants us to, loving in relationship with God and neighbor. Not just our friends, not just the people we like, the people who look like us. We must love our enemies too. Democrats have to love Republicans, darn it. Republicans need to love Democrats, and more, in the same way that Jesus did. Words are cheap. Jesus said, "Many will say, 'Lord, Lord.'" Jesus' brother writes in his book something that I've clung to for a long time. Show me your faith apart from your works, and by my works I'll show you my faith. It's quite another thing to put word into action. You see, the call to follow Jesus is a call of self-sacrifice. It's to give ourselves on behalf of others, to take second place. And so this morning, thanks to John, thanks to his faithfulness, we remember this powerful story, Peter's history, his considerable bravado. I will lay down my life for you, Peter said. And then giving the chance to stand by his friend at the end, Peter bails out on Jesus. Well, I have this friend who says life's lessons are repeated until they're learned. And this time, I think they are, because we know what Peter went on to do and to be. Jesus gives Peter and all of us another opportunity and another opportunity and another opportunity to carry out our commitment to him. Oh, we may not be called to die for Jesus as Peter did, though some around the world do every day. Still, we are all called to tend his sheep in a way that may cost us our reputation, our comfort, our resources. So, third time's a charm, right? Simon, son of John, do you love me? Consider the amazing change here in the Greek word that Jesus chooses for love this time. Well, Rocky, do you at least love me like a brother? I can't imagine the depth of feeling that was roiling around in Peter's head and heart. Could be that Peter even attempted to dodge that one last question. He might have been hurt. I might have been hurt, if I was in his situation. Ego rising to the surface. He offers one last argument. And this is another way that witnesses in the courtroom, even our own children sometimes, can be non-responsive. Like a frustrated Colonel Jessup arguing with that young Tom Cruise JAG attorney, in A Few Good Men. Peter fires back, "You want answers? Come on, you already know everything about me, Jesus." True, Jesus does know everything, and that's why he only deals in the truth, which Peter still seems to have such a hard time handling. Does that sound familiar to you? It does to me. I believe it does help that Jesus can see all the way to the end of time. Peter, I can already see your faithfulness. This time, you will indeed die for my sheep. You will die because you are my follower now. What a Damascus Road experience that must have been for Peter that day, as his non-responsiveness gives way to Jesus' straight talk. It's like the stunning C major resolution at the end of Gustav Mahler's Resurrection Symphony. You wait an hour and then big C chord. This time Peter pledges himself. He makes a sacrificial offer of his life. True, authentic, agape love, which is lived out. It's real. This is a story about the day that Peter stepped out of the witness box and into the world to become a true disciple of Jesus the Christ. Forgiven, restored, made new by the amazing love of Jesus Christ. So, here's questions for us this morning from our resurrected Lord, this third Sunday of Easter. Are we willing to demonstrate our love for Jesus by the way that we live, by the way that we love, by the way that we care for others? Or will we perjure ourselves before the highest judge of all? As you think about that, consider Jesus' sobering words in Matthew 25:31. Whatever you did to the least of these, you did to me. So here's the best news of all. And this is the one that gets me through all the time. Though we are humans and we are always prone to failure, when it comes to Jesus' commandment to practice his kind of love. We know that the one who judges us just happens to be our defense attorney. He's the one who's already forgiven us. He's already restored us for sins past, present, and future, in the same way that Jesus forgave and restored Peter there that very day so long ago by the Sea of Galilee. So friends in Christ, every day we have the opportunity to start over. Maybe that's why we call it new life, right? Our words can, in fact, be perfected in our deeds. Our lives can indeed be faithful responses to Jesus' clarion call to discipleship. And I believe with God's help, we really can handle the truth. And now to God be all the glory. And the people of God said, Amen.